Dear friends, welcome to our channel. We are very pleased to share with you different stories about love and betrayal from around the world. Now let's begin today's story journey. The sound of rain hitting the cardboard boxes was like a sarcastic symphony. Matthew stood in front of what was once his home, looking at the items scattered on the sidewalk, their clothes, his expensive suits, and his daughter Lily's favorite teddy bear, all carelessly thrown onto the wet street. 6-year-old Lily held his hand tightly, tears mixing with rainwater as they streamed down her little face. "Daddy, why are our things outside?" Lily asked in a trembling voice. Matthew took a deep breath, forcing himself to stay calm. He would never forget this scene, never forget this feeling. The feeling of trust completely shattered. Just 3 days ago, he had taken his daughter to Boston for an important business meeting, which was also a father-daughter trip. He never imagined he would face such a scene upon returning home. "Let's find a place to stay first, baby," Matthew calmly replied, trying not to let anger seep into his voice. "Then Daddy will take care of this." Matthew didn't knock on the door or try to enter the house he had been paying the mortgage on for 7 years. He called a taxi and took his daughter, along with some of their less damp belongings that they could salvage, to a high-end hotel downtown. Only after Lily had finally fallen asleep in the hotel suite did Matthew allow himself to recall the events that led to all this today. Matthew was a senior financial advisor at a well-known investment firm, responsible for handling high-net-worth clients' portfolios. He worked hard, but always made sure to set aside enough time for his family. He and Sophia met at a charity dinner 8 years ago, where Sophia was the marketing director for an advertising company. Their love came quickly and intensely, and they married just 6 months later. It was the happiest day of his life. He remembered how Sophia looked in her white wedding dress, and how they saw only love and commitment in each other's eyes. The following year, they welcomed the birth of their daughter Lily, and life seemed perfect. 5 years ago, Sophia's father Robert suffered a major financial crisis. His small construction company, which he had run for 25 years, went bankrupt, and family savings were depleted by medical expenses and debts. Robert and his wife Margaret almost lost their home in Philadelphia. When Sophia was worried about her parents' situation, Matthew didn't hesitate to help. "We'll help them," he promised Sophia at the time, "whatever they need." He clearly remembered that night, how Sophia cried in his arms, and how he felt he could do anything for her. From then on, Matthew transferred a considerable amount to Sophia's parents each month, enough to cover their mortgage, medical expenses, and daily costs. But one thing Sophia and Matthew never discussed was that Sophia never told her parents that the money actually came from Matthew. Instead, she let her parents believe the financial support came from her, claiming her career was flourishing and she wanted to repay them for raising her. Matthew knew this, but didn't mind. He respected Sophia's desire to maintain pride in front of her parents, and he was humble enough not to need recognition for his generosity. To him, helping family was the right thing to do, requiring no special acknowledgement. Tears stung Matthew's eyes, but he refused to let them fall. He opened his laptop and began organizing his thoughts and plans. He needed to understand what had happened, why Sophia would do such a thing, and what actions he needed to take now. Sophia's side of the story began about a year ago. As a senior marketing director at a well-known advertising company, Sophia was responsible for managing some of the company's largest client accounts. She enjoyed her work and the social status it brought. However, as time passed, a strange dissatisfaction began to grow in her heart. She started to feel that life had become boring and predictable. Every morning, she would send Lily to school, then go to work, come home in the evening to cook, and spend weekends at Lily's activities or having dinner with friends. Although Matthew always made sure they had quality time together, arranging family vacations and date nights, Sophia began to crave more excitement and attention. "Is this my life now?" she often asked herself in front of the mirror, combing her unchanging hairstyle. This dissatisfaction didn't stem from any actual unhappiness. She had a husband who loved her, a healthy daughter, a good job. But deep inside Sophia, there was a growing sense of emptiness, a questioning of her self-worth. In her high school and college days, she was always the one being pursued, and that feeling of being desired gave her power and confidence. Now, as a married mother, she found herself craving that feeling to return. 8 months ago, the company hired Ethan as the new creative director. Ethan was 3 years older than Sophia, with a charming smile and a gift for storytelling. He had just moved from Los Angeles, bringing with him that West Coast charm that Sophia found both mysterious and attractive. When they were assigned to the same important client project, Sophia found herself drawn to his presence. At first, it was just harmless flirting and work lunches. Sophia told herself it was just a professional relationship, a way to build alliances in the competitive advertising world. But as they spent more time together, the boundaries began to blur. Ethan always knew exactly how to find her weak spots, when to give compliments, when to show appreciation and need. 6 months ago, during a celebration after a successful client pitch, Sophia and Ethan stayed behind alone. After a few glasses of champagne, Ethan leaned close to her ear and whispered, "I've been thinking about you, not just about work. You're the smartest, most fascinating woman I've ever met." That night, they crossed the line for the first time, in a hotel room near the office. Sophia told herself it was just a temporary indulgence, a lapse that wouldn't happen again. When she got home, she cried silently in the bathroom, ashamed of what she had done. But when Ethan sent a message the next day describing how much he missed her, the feeling of being desired was too strong to resist. One time became two, then regular secret meetings. For her behavior, Sophia constructed a complex set of excuses. She told herself that Matthew was too focused on work, even though that wasn't true. She began to magnify every little problem in the marriage, viewing ordinary arguments as major conflicts. She even began secretly recording Matthew's failures. He forgot to buy milk. He was 10 minutes late picking up Lily from school. He occasionally checked work emails at breakfast. These trivial things were twisted and magnified in her mind, becoming justifications for her infidelity. Over time, Sophia began to rewrite the history of her marriage, portraying Matthew as more distant and authoritarian to alleviate her guilt. She started complaining to her parents about Matthew's controlling behavior, suggesting he restricted her freedom and career development. These were lies, but she needed them to justify her infidelity. Meanwhile, she never stopped accepting Matthew's financial support for her parents, creating more contradictions and unease in her heart. 3 months ago, Sophia and Ethan's relationship became more serious. Ethan began to hint that they could be together if she were willing to leave Matthew. "Imagine life together," he would whisper to her. "No constraints, no responsibilities, just passion and freedom." Intoxicated by love and the thrill of betrayal, Sophia began to plan how to end her marriage. But deep inside, a small voice reminded her that she was destroying the life of someone who loved her and breaking up her daughter's family. However, she chose to ignore this voice, immersing herself in fantasies with Ethan, believing this was the happiness she deserved. 2 weeks ago, when Matthew told Sophia he needed to go to Boston for an important 3-day meeting, Sophia saw an opportunity. Matthew suggested taking Lily along, as one day of the meeting was on a weekend and he could show his daughter around the city. Sophia expressed support for this idea, claiming she could use this time to complete an important work project at home. After Matthew and Lily left, Sophia contacted her parents, telling them she was finally ready to leave her controlling husband. She painted a completely fictional story of abuse, claiming Matthew had been emotionally manipulating her, controlling the family finances, and isolating her from friends and family. "I've been supporting you, and now I need you to support me," she told her parents, tears seemingly ready to fall at any moment. Margaret and Robert, believing their daughter's lies, immediately rushed to her side to help. With their assistance, Sophia packed up all of Matthew's belongings and threw them onto the street, changed the locks, and prepared to start what she thought would be a life full of passion and freedom. She even celebrated this new beginning with Ethan in the master bedroom on the second floor, completely disregarding what this meant for her daughter. Sophia's plan was to tell Matthew when he returned that she had consulted a divorce lawyer and that he needed to find another place to stay. What she hadn't anticipated was that Matthew would return a day early and find his life completely destroyed. In the hotel room, Matthew listed on his notebook the things he needed to do. He first called his lawyer David, an old friend experienced in family law. He briefly explained the situation and arranged a meeting for the next morning. "This is absurd, Matt," David said on the phone. "She can't just kick you out of your own house like that. It's illegal." "I know," Matthew replied. "But the most important thing right now is to protect Lily. I don't want her caught up in this mess. Then he called his bank to temporarily freeze the accounts he held jointly with Sophia to prevent her from emptying them. This wasn't out of revenge, but caution. He needed to ensure Lily's future and his own financial security. In the evening, he received a text from Sophia. I guess you've seen. We need to talk. The lawyer says you should keep your distance, but I'm willing to meet tomorrow to discuss arrangements. You can see Lily, but I think you understand we're over. The tone of the text was cold and practical, as if discussing canceling a dinner reservation, not ending an 8-year marriage. This lack of emotion shocked Matthew more than any shouting or accusations would have. Matthew didn't reply. He needed time to clear his thoughts and make a plan. Anger, betrayal, and shock intertwined in his heart, but he was determined to remain rational and calm, with Lily's well-being as his primary concern. He walked to the room where Lily was sleeping and sat gently on the edge of the bed. Looking at her peaceful, sleeping face, he felt a firm determination. No matter what happened, he would protect her and ensure she knew she was loved. He gently kissed her forehead, then returned to his own room to prepare for tomorrow's battle. The next morning, Matthew met with his lawyer David and discussed his options in detail. Given Sophia's deceptive behavior and their financial situation, David believed Matthew had a strong advantage in seeking primary custody of Lily. The most important thing is to gather evidence, David advised. We need to document everything: texts, emails, financial records, anything that can prove you've been supporting her parents and her improper conduct. I have bank records for the past 6 months showing evidence of my transfers to her parents, Matthew said. But regarding her affair, I only have suspicions, no concrete evidence. Don't worry, David reassured him. I have a private investigator friend who can help. The focus now is to ensure you and Lily have a safe place to stay. Then we can start legal proceedings to reclaim use of the house. After the meeting, Matthew decided it was time to confront Sophia, but on his terms. He texted Sophia, "Meet at Crown Cafe at 3 p.m. Public place, discussing practical matters only." When Matthew walked into the cafe, Sophia was already sitting in a corner, looking both nervous and defensive. She had dressed up meticulously, wearing new clothes Matthew had never seen before, which made him suspect they might have been purchased to please Ethan. "How could you do this to me?" Sophia began as soon as she saw Matthew, her voice accusatory. "Do you know how confusing this is for Lily?" Matthew sat down calmly, looking at Sophia without expression. Even in these circumstances, he could still see shadows of the woman he had once loved, but now she seemed like a stranger to him. "I want to know why my 6-year-old daughter and I came home to find our belongings thrown onto the street," he said calmly. "I want to know why you lied to your parents about me abusing you when in fact I've been paying their living expenses. I want to know why you thought betraying our marriage and family was acceptable." Sophia's face suddenly turned pale. "How do you know what I told my parents?" "That's not important," Matthew replied. "What's important is how we handle this from now on. I've consulted a lawyer. I want primary custody of Lily, and given your recent behavior, I believe the court will support me." Sophia's eyes widened. "You can't take her away from me, like you couldn't take our home away from us." Matthew retorted, "I'm not trying to punish you, Sophia. I'm just doing what's best for Lily. A person who deceives their spouse, lies to their family, and is willing to make their own child homeless is not someone I want to be Lily's primary caregiver." Sophia's expression changed from shock to cold calculation. "Do you think you can win? I can make everyone believe you're controlling. My parents will testify for me. Are you really willing to go that far?" Matthew asked, his voice low and firm. "Because if you push me, I will expose everything, including the fact that I've been supporting your parents and your extramarital affair with Ethan." Sophia's expression changed, reality beginning to penetrate her consciousness. "You have no evidence of anything between me and Ethan." Matthew took out his phone and opened a text message. "The private investigator sent this last night," he said, showing photos of Sophia and Ethan entering a hotel, with the date clearly showing it was 3 days ago. "I have more, but I think you get the point." For the next hour, they discussed the practical issues of separation. Matthew maintained a calm and factual attitude, refusing to be swayed by Sophia's tears or accusations. When the conversation ended, he stood up, ready to leave. "One more thing," he said. "From today on, I won't be sending money to your parents anymore. If you want to continue supporting them, that's up to you now." Sophia's expression changed from shock to panic. You can't do that. They can't afford their mortgage and mom's medical bills. Perhaps you should have considered that when you decided to destroy our family, Matthew answered, then turned and left, leaving Sophia alone to face the consequences of her choices. After leaving the cafe, Matthew didn't feel the satisfaction of revenge he had expected. Instead, he felt a deep sadness and loss. He had once prided himself on his life's success, a good job, a beautiful family, a wife he deeply loved and believed loved him too. Now, it had all collapsed like a house of cards. His first stop was at Sophia's parents' home. Although he was angry that Sophia had lied to them, he believed they had a right to know the truth, especially about who had actually been supporting them for the past 5 years. He also wanted to ensure they knew that his decision to stop financial support wasn't out of malice, but a necessary result of the circumstances. When Matthew knocked on the door of Robert and Margaret's home in the Philadelphia suburbs, he felt both nervous and determined. When the door opened, Robert stood there, his expression quickly changing from surprise to hostility. "You shouldn't be here," Robert said stiffly, "after everything you've done to my daughter." "I think we need to talk, Robert," Matthew replied calmly. "There are many things Sophia hasn't told you." In the living room, Margaret joined them, her expression equally filled with suspicion and distrust. Matthew wasted no time and directly showed them bank records of transfers from his account to theirs over the past 5 years. "Every monthly transfer for the past 5 years has been paid directly from my salary," Matthew explained, his voice steady. "Sophia never told you this. She let you believe it was her money." Robert and Margaret stared at the documents in shock, almost speechless. "But Sophia told us her promotions and bonuses," Margaret finally said, her voice trailing off. "I don't know what Sophia told you," Matthew continued, "but I do know that what she recently told you about me abusing her is completely fabricated. I have been a loyal husband and father, and Sophia has been having an affair with her colleague Ethan for the past 6 months." Robert's face turned red, both from embarrassment and anger. "What makes you think we would believe you over our own daughter?" Matthew took out his phone and played a video. It was footage from a surveillance camera across from the cafe, clearly showing Sophia and Ethan in intimate contact, with the date showing it was 2 months ago. "This is just one piece of evidence," Matthew said. "I'm not here to hurt you or to ask you to take my side. I just thought you should know the truth because this affects you too." As reality began to emerge, Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "Our house mortgage, my treatments," she said shakily. "I won't stop the support immediately," Matthew said gently. "I'll give you 3 months to sort out your finances. But after that, you'll need to discuss with Sophia how to continue." "I'm sorry things turned out this way." As he prepared to leave, Robert suddenly reached out and grabbed his arm. "Matthew, I don't know what to say. We were completely in the dark." "I know," Matthew replied. "It's not your fault. But please understand, I need to think about myself and Lily now. I've given too much already." After leaving Sophia's parents' home, Matthew felt a strange sense of relief. Speaking the truth was both painful and necessary. He knew Robert and Margaret now faced difficult choices, but these were the natural consequences of Sophia's actions, not punishments he was imposing. The next few weeks were a difficult adjustment period for everyone. With David's help, Matthew rented a new apartment for himself and Lily and began to establish a new daily routine. The apartment was close to Lily's school, with a small garden and a common area where she could play. He carefully arranged Lily's room, trying to create a warm and safe atmosphere. "Is this our new home, Daddy?" Lily asked on the first night, as they read a bedtime story on her new bed. "Yes, baby, for now," Matthew replied. "After everything is settled, we'll find a more permanent place." "Will Mommy live with us?" Matthew took a deep breath. "No, Lily. Mommy will have her own place. But you'll see both of us. Why don't you love each other anymore?" Lily's question was direct and honest, making Matthew's heart ache. Sometimes, even when two people once loved each other very much, things change, he answered as honestly as possible. "But we both will always love you. That will never change." He hired an experienced child psychologist to help Lily adjust to the reality of her parents' separation. Although Lily missed her mother, Matthew ensured that Sophia could visit regularly, though always in a supervised environment. He worried that Sophia might try to take Lily away or instill negative thoughts about Matthew in her. Meanwhile, Sophia's world began to crumble. Her parents, shocked by her deception, temporarily cut off contact. When they finally spoke, the conversation was full of accusations and disappointment. "How could you lie to us?" Margaret asked, her voice filled with pain. "Make us believe Matthew was abusive, when in fact he was the one helping us all along." "You don't understand," Sophia defended. "Matthew did control me, just in different ways. He used his money to control everyone." "Enough, Sophia," Robert interrupted, his voice stern. "We've seen the evidence. You betrayed a husband who loved you, lied about him abusing you, and put your own child at risk. We need time to process all this." Although they would eventually rebuild their relationship, trust had been severely damaged. Robert and Margaret began to reassess their financial situation, realizing they needed to make some difficult decisions, possibly selling their house, reducing expenses, or finding additional sources of income. At work, Sophia's affair quickly became office gossip. Initially, she and Ethan tried to keep a low profile, but secrets are hard to maintain in a tight work environment. When someone saw them kissing in the parking lot, rumors spread like wildfire. The company had strict policies about office romances, especially when they involved direct reporting relationships. Ethan, as the creative director, was technically Sophia's superior, which made the situation more complicated. When the Human Resources Department began to investigate, Ethan quickly distanced himself from the entire situation. "It was just a momentary lapse in judgment," he told his supervisor, skillfully shifting most of the blame onto Sophia. "She pursued me, and I should have been firmer in rejecting her." Considering her marital status, it was very unprofessional. Sophia was shocked to hear of Ethan's betrayal. In her office, she confronted him. "How could you do this to me? I gave up everything for you." Ethan looked at her coldly, the once passionate man gone, replaced by a cold stranger. "Don't be dramatic, Sophia. You made your own choices. I never promised anything long-term." Feeling betrayed, not just by Ethan but by her own choices, Sophia tried to salvage her position at the company. She assured management that the relationship was over, that it was just a mistake. But just when she thought the situation might be resolved, an even bigger blow came. A colleague named Jessica came forward, claiming Ethan had had a similar relationship with her just before he started with Sophia. Then 2 more women came forward with similar allegations. It became clear that Ethan had a pattern. He liked to pursue married or committed women, enjoyed the thrill of conquest, then quickly lost interest and sought the next target. Sophia was just the latest victim in his long-standing behavior pattern. 3 weeks later, Sophia was fired by the company for violating company ethical codes and professional conduct standards. Ethan kept his job but was demoted and transferred to another department. Sophia felt angry and betrayed, but she began to realize these were all direct consequences of her own choices. On her way home, sitting in a taxi, staring at the city landscape outside the window, she wondered how her life had unraveled so quickly. Just over a month ago, she had everything: a husband who loved her, a beautiful daughter, a successful career. Now, she had lost it all, left only with regret and emptiness. But even in this low point, Sophia still didn't fully face the truth of her actions. She continued to place part of the blame on Matthew, telling herself that if he had been more attentive to her emotional needs, if he hadn't been so focused on his career, if their marriage hadn't become so mundane, none of this would have happened. This kind of thinking allowed her to move forward without having to face the full weight of the decisions she had made. When she returned to the house, now inhabited by her alone, the empty rooms reminded her of everything she had lost. Lily's toys were still scattered in her room. Matthew's clothes had disappeared from the closet. She poured herself a glass of wine, sat in the dark, thinking about how she could rebuild her life. Meanwhile, Matthew's legal team had been gathering evidence for the upcoming custody battle. The private investigator hired by David discovered more information about Ethan, including his history of deceiving multiple women, and the most shocking discovery: he was already married. Victoria, Ethan's wife, lived in Los Angeles, but they had never divorced. They were actually in an open marriage, but with clear rules: never bring it home, never get emotionally involved. Ethan had clearly violated these rules, which made Victoria both angry and hurt. When David presented this information to Matthew, he just shook his head. "It doesn't matter," he said. "I don't want to waste energy on revenge or humiliating Sophia. I only care about ensuring Lily has a stable, safe environment." This information will be important to the judge, David pointed out. It shows that Sophia's judgment is seriously flawed, which may make her unsuitable as the primary caregiver. Matthew nodded, but his mood was heavy. Regardless of the outcome of the legal battle, Lily would have to grow up in a broken family. This wasn't what he wanted, but he was determined to minimize the harm as much as possible. Legally, things were equally unfavorable for Sophia. When the divorce proceedings began, Matthew's lawyer submitted substantial evidence of Sophia's infidelity and deceptive behavior. Given Matthew's stable income, appropriate living arrangements, and the fact that he had always been Lily's primary caregiver, the court awarded Matthew primary custody of Lily. Sophia was granted weekend visitation rights, but under supervision for the first few months. The judge harshly criticized her behavior, especially locking Matthew out of the house and disposing of their joint property at will. This kind of irresponsible behavior shows a serious disregard for the best interests of the child, the judge wrote in his ruling. When the custody ruling was announced, Sophia felt a despair she had never experienced before. She had really lost custody of her daughter. Although she had visitation rights, she was no longer the center of Lily's daily life. This realization made her truly face everything she had done for the first time. Meanwhile, Sophia began looking for a new job, but in the advertising world, news travels fast. After several interviews, she realized her professional reputation had been damaged. Eventually, she had to accept a position with a substantially reduced salary, working at a small agency. In her new position, Sophia had to start from scratch. She was no longer a director managing large clients and teams, but an ordinary marketing specialist responsible for small local clients. It was a difficult transition, but it gave her time to reflect on her choices and behavior patterns. Ethan's life also began to suffer the consequences of his behavior. When Victoria discovered the extent of his betrayal, she decided to end their marriage. Despite their relationship being open, she could not accept his deception and manipulation. "We had rules, Ethan," she told him in their final call. "Honesty was paramount. If I can't trust you, none of this means anything." The divorce was a financial blow to Ethan, as Victoria came from a wealthy family and had supported him throughout their marriage. Suddenly, he lost that financial support and had to bear all his debts alone. When Sophia learned that Ethan was married, she felt a humiliation and foolishness she had never experienced before. She had completely misjudged the situation, believing their relationship was special, when in fact she was just another trophy in his conquest series. This realization made her feel even more lonely and abandoned. In the months that followed, Sophia began a slow and painful process of self-examination. She started working with a therapist, trying to understand what led to her destructive behavior. Although she still blamed some of the responsibility on Matthew and the marriage's problems, she began to acknowledge that her own selfishness and insecurities played a major role in her decisions. For Sophia, the hardest part was her time with Lily. During supervised visitation, she felt embarrassed and full of shame. Seeing the social worker present to supervise her interactions with her own daughter was a painful reminder of the mistakes she had made. Worse still, Lily began to show resistance to these visits. "Why can't Mommy come to our house to see me?" Lily once asked Matthew. "Because Mommy has her own house now," Matthew explained as gently as possible. "Sometimes adults need to live separately. But I don't want to go to that place to see her," Lily stubbornly said. "It's strange there, with strangers watching us." These words stung Matthew's heart. Despite Sophia's behavior, he didn't want Lily's relationship with her mother to be damaged. "That person is there to help make sure everything goes smoothly," he explained. "It will only be for a while. The important thing is that you and Mommy stay connected. She loves you, just like I love you." Although these words were difficult for him to say, Matthew knew that maintaining a healthy relationship with both parents was most important for Lily. 6 months later, the divorce was finally settled. Matthew and Sophia met outside the courthouse to sign the final papers. "I wish things could have been different," Sophia said, her eyes moist with regret. "I made a terrible mistake." Matthew looked at her calmly. "No, Sophia, you made a series of choices. You chose to betray me, lie to your parents, and put your daughter at risk. These weren't mistakes, they were decisions. Do you think you could ever forgive me?" Sophia asked, a hint of hope in her voice. "Maybe not now, but someday?" For Lily's sake. Matthew shook his head, his gaze firm and calm. I won't forgive what you did. It wasn't a momentary impulse or a mistake, but a series of deliberate actions. You didn't just betray me. You betrayed Lily and your own parents. You lied to them, manipulated them, made them believe I was abusive. These aren't things that can be forgiven. Sophia's eyes filled with tears, but Matthew maintained emotional distance. We will co-parent Lily because that's best for her. I will respect your role as her mother, but that's it. There will be no friendship or reconciliation between us. That bridge has been completely burned. Sophia nodded, tears finally falling. She understood Matthew's position, even though it pained her. In that moment, she fully realized everything she had lost: a husband who loved her, a stable family, her parents' trust, her professional reputation. All of these were lost because of her selfish choices. As time passed, Lily gradually adapted to the new living arrangements. It was difficult at first. She often had nightmares and showed behavioral problems at school. But with Matthew's steady support and regular counseling, she began to adjust. 6 months later, the requirement for supervised visitation was lifted, and Sophia could take Lily out alone on weekends. Although this was a positive development, repairing the mother-daughter relationship remained a slow and difficult process. Lily became more withdrawn, appearing tense when with her mother. She hates me, Sophia once said to Matthew after picking up Lily. She doesn't hate you, Matthew replied. She just doesn't know how to deal with all this. Give her time. A year later, life gradually found a new normal. Matthew and Lily established a comfortable life in their new home. It was a larger, more permanent house they had moved into, with a backyard and the swing that Lily had always wanted. Matthew was promoted to partner at his company, giving him more flexibility to balance work and family life. Although he dated a few times, he mainly focused on raising Lily and rebuilding his own life. Surprisingly, Matthew rebuilt his relationship with Margaret and Robert. Despite the initial betrayal and shock, they realized that for Lily's sake, maintaining contact with her grandparents was important. After several awkward meetings, they began to build a new relationship, no longer based on lies, but on their shared love for Lily. They often came to visit Lily, and even occasionally looked after her, giving Matthew some personal time. Sophia continued to work in a lower-level position, striving to rebuild her career. Her new company was smaller, the salary only half of what she earned before, but she began to re-establish some professional credibility. Her relationship with her parents improved, but remained tense. Every meeting was overshadowed by unspoken accusations and disappointment. She strived to be a better mother, cherishing every moment with Lily. In painful self-reflection, she began to understand that it was her own choices that led to her current situation. However, despite surface acknowledgement, deep inside she still maintained a victim mentality, never fully accepting full responsibility for her actions. Ethan's situation was more miserable. His divorce was ugly and expensive, and he lost contact with his 2 children from his previous marriage. His career also took a hit, as his reputation in the advertising world had been damaged. In the department where he was demoted, he found himself isolated by colleagues, excluded from important projects. After multiple complaints, his company eventually fired him too, ostensibly due to restructuring, but actually because management no longer trusted his judgment. After losing his job, Ethan had to accept temporary work with significantly reduced income. He moved back to Los Angeles to try to start over, but found his professional reputation had followed him there. The once charming, confident creative genius was now an industry joke, a cautionary tale. For Matthew, he had accepted what happened, even if he would never forgive it. He understood that trust once broken is difficult to repair, and some betrayals are too deep to heal. But he also learned about his own strength and resilience. One evening, as Matthew sat in the backyard after Lily had gone to bed, he received a call from Sophia. "I just wanted to tell you," she said, her voice sounding calm. "I've accepted a job in Chicago. It's a good opportunity, but it means I'll be moving away." Matthew felt a wave of surprise. "What about Lily?" "We can arrange for me to see her on long weekends and holidays," Sophia replied. "I know it's not ideal, but this job is very important for my career." After hanging up, Matthew felt mixed emotions: relief that Sophia would no longer be a part of his daily life, but also sadness for Lily, who wouldn't be able to see her mother frequently. When he told Lily the news, her reaction was unexpected. Does that mean I don't have to go see Mom every weekend? She asked. No, baby, Matthew explained. It means you'll see her during long breaks and holidays. Probably less often. Lily thought for a moment, then nodded. Okay. Her calm acceptance both surprised and somewhat worried Matthew. How do you feel about Mom moving away? He carefully asked. Lily shrugged. A little sad, I guess. But when I'm with her, she's always weird. Like she's trying too hard. Matthew hugged Lily, realizing his daughter was more perceptive and stronger than he had imagined. Despite everything, she remained a balanced, well-adjusted child. He felt proud of her and of his own steadfastness and consistency as a father. 2 months later, on the day Sophia left, Matthew took Lily to the airport to say goodbye. As mother and daughter embraced, Sophia's eyes filled with tears. I'll miss you so much, darling, she said to Lily. I'll miss you too, Mom, Lily replied, her voice small. When Sophia turned to Matthew, there was a moment of awkward silence. Thank you for bringing her, she finally said. Matthew just nodded. No forgiveness, no emotional farewell. Just a professional courtesy for the sake of their daughter. As Sophia walked toward security, Matthew felt no triumph or satisfaction of revenge, just a quiet acceptance. Ready to go home, B? He asked Lily, taking her hand. Yeah, she answered, taking one last look at her mother before turning toward the exit. On the way home, Lily asked, Daddy, do you still love Mommy? Matthew considered for a moment, wanting to give an answer that was both honest and appropriate for a child. I don't love her the same way I used to, he finally said. Sometimes, when people hurt each other, love changes. But that doesn't mean the love you once had wasn't real. Lily nodded, seeming to accept the answer. I'm kind of hungry, she said, changing the subject. Can we have pizza? Matthew smiled. Of course we can, B. In their new home, life continued to move forward. Matthew knew the future would bring more challenges. Lily growing into a teenager, possibly having more questions about her mother. There might be new relationships and potential step-parents, and countless other complications. But he also knew they would face these challenges together, one day at a time, one step at a time. In his own life, Matthew remained vigilant, refusing to let the pain of betrayal define him. He connected more closely with family and friends, found fulfillment in work, and occasionally tried dating, although he remained cautious about building new intimate relationships. Sophia found some degree of success in her new job in Chicago, but she found herself still regretting everything she had lost. She called Lily regularly, flying back to see her during holidays and special occasions, but the mother-daughter relationship never fully regained its former intimacy. Sophia would never admit it, but she began to realize she may have lost a part of her daughter forever, the most enduring consequence of her choices. For Ethan, his downward trajectory continued. His attempt to start over in Los Angeles failed, and he found himself working at a small, nameless design studio, far below his talent and experience level. His social circle shrank, no longer filled with lavish dinners and luxury parties, just a lonely apartment and expired ambitions. Sometimes, in the quiet of night, he would think of Sophia, wondering if things might have been different if he hadn't abandoned her. But these reflections came too late and meant too little to change anything. When Matthew read Lily a story each night, he looked into his daughter's eyes, knowing he had made the right decisions. After everything, despite the pain and loss, they still had each other. On one special evening, as he tucked Lily into bed, she looked up at him and said with the wisdom unique to children, Daddy, you're my hero. Matthew smiled, gently kissing her forehead. And you are my world, B. Sleep well. As he turned off the light and left her room, Matthew felt a peace and contentment he never expected to feel again. Despite the unexpected turns life had thrown at him, he had found the strength to move forward. Not by forgiving the unforgivable, but by accepting what had happened and building a worthwhile life in the new reality. He would never forgive Sophia's betrayal. That wound was too deep, too permanent. But he had learned to define himself through his love for Lily, his commitment to work, and his determination to build a new, more authentic future rather than through what he had lost. In the process, he discovered a new strength, a strength that came from surviving, adapting, and not just continuing to live, but truly beginning to thrive again. If this story resonated with you, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more compelling content. We look forward to seeing you in our next story.